Good afternoon from Brussels, and welcome to this Solar Power Europe webinar, Digital Solutions for Storage and E-Mobility, and End Customer's Perspective. Today we will look at the synergies across the topics of energy storage, digitalization, and e-mobility. We will present an update of the European residential storage market with a focus on Germany, which is the largest storage market in Europe, and we'll discuss trends and preferences among residential customers in relation to these topics. The presentation will be based on EuPD Research news survey on German end customers. So we will hear about preferences in terms of complementary technologies, their perception about the end of the feed-in tariff regime, how do they see the interaction between PV storage and purchasing an electric vehicle, as well as cloud and community solutions, among other topics. My name is Raffaele Rossi, and I work at Solar Power Europe as a policy analyst, and I'm very much looking forward to moderating this webinar. This topic is high on the European agenda, given the prominence that the Green New Deal is being given by EU policymakers, so I hope you find this discussion interesting as well. Before I introduce today's speakers, let me draw your attention on our upcoming event on these topics. It's Digital Solar and Storage 2019, which has reached its third edition, and this year will take place in Brussels for the first time. We have a number of exciting sessions that will see the contributions of several distinguished speakers, which include Dieter Juhl-Jørgensen, MEP Adina Johanna Valean, and the Vice Mayor of Brussels, Benoit Hellings, among others. The conference will take place on the 5th and 6th of November at BEL Brussels. So I cordially invite you to have a look at the full program on our website. For this year, let me highlight that we have for the first time an e-mobility exhibition, and that we will also continue the successful format of the Startup Awards, where you'll have the chance to learn about new exciting business projects from startups that come from all over Europe. Registrations are still open, so book your ticket today. So today I'm glad to have with me Julian Lückerath and Saif Islam from EuPD Research, who will guide us through the findings of the study and will discuss what storage, digitalization, and e-mobility in the energy system actually mean for households. Before we start, a few housekeeping rules from my side. If you attended any of our previous webinars, the rules are always the same. If you have any questions, you can type them using the tool on the right-hand side of the screen. Please don't forget to do in the question box and not in the chat box. We will try to address your questions during the Q&A session that will take place after the presentation. To answer the most asked question at any webinar, shortly after the end of the webinar, we will share the slides and the recording of the webinar with you. So you will receive everything in your mailbox in a short time frame. So now I think we can start with the presentation. So without further ado, Julian and Saif, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Raffaele. Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining today's webinar. Special thanks, as usual, goes to the whole Solar Power Europe team. We're not only highly excited about the webinar today, but also for digital solar and storage in Brussels. As you mentioned, Raffaele, we will be there as well, so please register. We're looking forward to meeting you all there. So, as already mentioned, today we're going to present the results of our most recently published report, the End Customer 9.0. This has been a regular report in our portfolio for obviously the last 9 years, and it focuses on German end customers. My colleague Julian will in a minute explain who the survey participants are. I just wanted to briefly mention why we survey German end customers. Obviously, the German end customer has always been a great indicator for upcoming trends and developments in regards to Germany being the pioneering PV market. And this year we also included a few new topics. We have a lot of information for you today, so if you want to know about our research or our current report, please get in touch with us. Our contact details are at the end of the slides. And before I get ahead of myself, I'd like to hand over to my colleague Julian.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Raffaele and Saif, for the introduction. I will start now with today's topics. And first I will introduce you to our company, EuPD Research. Then I will provide you with a European market update for residential energy storage systems. And here I will show you the current market volumes and will give a forecast until 2021. After this general overview, we will focus on market data and facts, which all are based on our brand new report, the End Customer Monitor, for the German market. And this point C is substructured. At first, I will present the report itself, like Saif told you already. Then I will go into more detail and give a characterization of the participants of the survey. In the course of this webinar, my colleague Saif will show very interesting slides dealing with the buying behavior of energy storage devices. In the next chapter, we will learn how the German and end customers think about the expiration of the EEG feed-in tariff. First owners of PV systems will have to go without this income from 2021. The next point focuses on electric mobility. Saif will present the buying motivation for e-mobility, as well as the importance of a private charging station. And the last important chapter is clouds and communities. Here we will show graphics dealing with the general awareness of these solutions, as well as reasons for not using a cloud or a community. And not listed here, but of course, at the end of our webinar, I'm going to summarize the most important facts that we have seen today about EuPD Research. We are a market research institute from Bonn in Germany, and we have been active in the field of photovoltaics for 19 years now. One of our strengths is exclusive services like customer satisfaction survey, market analysis, and storage workshops. Furthermore, we provide PV reports from different points of view, for example, from commercial end customers or from PV installers. And another one, today's report highlights the German PV market from the point of view from private end customers. And we also grant certifications as the top brand PV seal in markets all over the world. Here you can see some of our current references. So in point B, the residential storage market update are 2 slides, and the next 2 slides serve as introduction of today's overall topic, electrical energy storage. And when watching this graph, you immediately get an impression of what the European storage market looks like these times, and you get an estimation of the current situation. For that purpose, I prepared this beautiful graph, which shows the market volumes for energy storage in the most important European countries, as well as of the rest of this continent. The blue bars show the number of EES installations, and for your understanding, this is not the installed capacity, but the total number of systems. And furthermore, I want to underline that we focus solely on residential PV systems up to 10 kilowatt peak, so that the plotted numbers only represent exactly this segment. And the shown numbers of installations are combined installations with a PV system in this year, 2019. So there is a little forecast until the end of this year included in this graph. Retrofit installations are not included. On the example of Germany, we could add around about 10,000 more retrofit installations. And today, more or less every second residential PV system in this segment up to 10 kilowatt peak comes together with an energy storage. As you can see, Germany is still the most dominant energy storage market in Europe, with more than 50,000 installations this year. And for years, Italy was the second most important market for energy storage and will still be in 2019, followed by the United Kingdom and the 2 Alpine countries, Austria and Switzerland. But what does the situation look like in the near future until 2021? As you can see, the overall picture will not change because Germany will continue to be the most dominant energy storage market, followed by Italy. But we also see that there are markets which will be strong EES markets in the future. In our estimation, Austria, for example, will overtake UK in only 2 years. So why do we think this will happen? For that, let's have a brief look at one of the most important drivers for energy storage. This is the electricity costs, which directly influence the levelized cost of storage and therefore the return on investment. In Austria, for example, we've seen increasing electricity costs, and this trend is predicted to continue over the next decade. UK, for example, has low electricity costs compared to other European countries. But the electricity costs are not the only factor to push or to damp the development of this technology. For a forecast, we have to look at each market individually because the second important driver are political decisions. And these, you can imagine, these decisions vary from country to country. Therefore, there are several economic incentives or possibilities to push this storage topic. But in general, we are very happy to see that all of these strategies seem to work because the market volumes for energy storage will increase all over Europe. And we will even see more drastic changes after 2021, for example, in the Netherlands, due to the political decisions. The end customer monitor, after this general European overview, we will dive deeper into the most mature energy storage market, Germany. In particular, we will have a look at the perspective of the German private end customer. So we at EuPD Research are well known for our installer surveys and the top brand PV seal, which is based on this installer survey. But we also conduct surveys dealing with end customers because, as I've already mentioned, the end customer plays an important role in the sales structures. And due to that, I will introduce you to our end customer report now. EuPD's product dealing with end customers is the end customer monitor. As you can see in the title of this slide, Saif also mentioned it, this report is already the 9th edition of this report, the best evidence that this one is one of our most regarded products. And the information we will provide today are brand new, really brand new. We published this current end customer monitor only last week. This year we serve an unbelievable number of 1,785 PV systems owners and planners. The survey is an online survey of members of the PV Forum. For more information, please visit photovoltaicforum.com. As always, one major part of this report is depicting the buying motives and processes of PV technology, including all technologies or PV modules, inverters, and storage. And here we ask the participants which brands they know and installed or are planning to install. Other questions are, for example, which motives play a role to invest in this technology? Which brands do they like, or which brand do they even recommend, and why do they recommend these brands? But we even go deeper and ask about the brand selection conversion rate, or which impact advertisement has in the various communication channels. Every year, the end customer monitor has a special focus on current topics. This year, due to the expiring EG subsidy in Germany, we asked the relevant PV owners about this topic. Furthermore, you will learn a lot about the topics electric mobility and cloud and community solutions. So as you can see here, the topics are dealing more and more with sector coupling, demand-side response, and digital solutions. And the end customer monitor is really a must-have report for everyone active in the field of photovoltaics in Germany. The head groups, to depict the topics we chose for this year's edition, we had to focus on different head groups. As you can see, in some there are 5 head groups, and in general we receive answers from planners and owners of PV systems. The planners and the new owners are important to analyze current trends in the market. And by asking, for example, long-time owners, we can interpret motivation shifts. For example, there's one example when it comes to the question, which is the main factor to decide for PV. Several years ago, a PV system was just an economic case. For end customers today, the most important factor is environmental awareness. So the conclusion is, in Germany, PV really starts to become a way of life. And the owners who installed until 2008 were surveyed to give us insight in their thoughts about the topic post-EEG. Characterization of the German end customer. So let's have a quick view into the characterization of this year's participants. And the next 3 slides are dealing with this background information. The share of head groups is really good this year to receive significant answers for all of our questions. More than the half of them is representing the newer PV owners and planners, and the other half is long-time owners. This next slide is dealing with the installed system sizes. And the major part of participants is representing typical residential system owners up to 10 kilowatt peaks. The number is 37%. And another 20% are operating a PV system between 10 and 40 kilowatt peak. Yeah, examples might be agricultural buildings or small commercial roofs. Bigger systems don't really play a role in this survey, and that's indeed good news, because this way we are really able to reflect the residential segment in Germany with this report. This third slide in this characterization provides you with interesting fact regarding house construction in combination with a PV system. And we see only in a few cases the PV systems were installed during the construction of the house. Looking at the head groups, however, it becomes apparent that more and more PV systems are being installed together with the house construction. And from nearly 1,700 participants in this question, only 9% installed the PV system when the house was built. Yeah, the question is why is the share as small? Unfortunately, we have no direct answer for that in this report, but in my opinion, it is the priority what to do first. Our reports show us that the initial investment is the barrier to invest in this technology. The good thing about PV is that it is edible later in most of the cases. Yeah, after the stress of constructing a house is gone, so this might be the reason for that. But now we will dive deeper in this report, and my colleague Saif will start to provide you with current data regarding the topics energy storage, post-EEG, electric mobility, and clouds and communities.
Yeah, thank you, Julian. So as mentioned, apart from modules and inverters, we also depict the buying process for energy storage solutions. We're just trying to switch the slide. Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. So we have a look at the buying process, not only for the PV system, but also for the storage system. I'm only also, due to time constraints, obviously, I'm only going to give you a few slides per topic, but I think you'll get the idea of what the report may look like. So let me allow you to give me some insights into storage. As you can see here, more than a third of the survey participants already have a storage system installed. Sorry, more than a quarter. And another 14% are in some way planning on installing an energy storage system, but haven't made a decision yet. A further large share, 38%, are still undecided. However, merely a quarter of the German end customers category do not want to have a storage system installed at this moment. So let's say around 75%, 3/4 are invested in storage in some way, maybe have not made a decision yet. So this is obviously a large share in regards to the size of the residential market in Germany. However, we did look at those who have not yet installed a system and are currently undecided. So from these 662 German end customers, a large majority, 93%, are planning or considering installing energy storage in the mid to long-term future. On the right side of this slide, you can also see that only a small share is going to do it within 12 months of installing the PV system. But in general, it's more of a midterm investment. So 2 to 5 years is here the dominant group. 38% answered this accordingly. In regards to what Julian said a couple of minutes ago, for the size of the PV system, obviously the German storage market is still dominated by residential installations. And this is nicely reflected in this graph and makes sense when combining it with the info Julian just gave us with the installed size of the PV systems. As you can see, more than 70% of the sample group have or will install a storage system of up to 10 kilowatts, which obviously makes residential storage the business case here. The large majority, though, however, is at the top or the upper end of the scale in regards to residential. 32% said that their storage system will have a size of between 7 and up to 10 kilowatt hours. Currently, the sample group is evenly divided when it comes to the time of installing an energy storage solution. So roughly half said they will install it directly with the PV system, and roughly the other half said they will do it afterwards. A slight majority is planning the installation together with the PV plant. Obviously, financial factors as pricing for PV and storage are the main factors why end customers probably may not install it directly and altogether. We also looked at complementary technologies. So we asked the end customers if they own any other technologies to basically enhance their storage system. Whereas more than half of the storage owners do not use a complementary technology, more than a quarter actually own a heat pump, and nearly 1/5 already owns a wall box. I'll speak about wall boxes a little bit later in the presentation. The heat pump is obviously an interesting technology to combine with the storage system because this helps to further maximize self-consumption, so heating with the generated PV electricity. Power to heat systems and infrared heatings are not yet as representative in this sample group, but we're eager to see how this is going to develop over the next couple of years. So again, Julian mentioned that we also, especially in this year's edition, wanted to speak to the end customers about what's going to happen when the feed-in tariff for their PV system expires. First systems, this will be relevant for the first systems, so by the end of next year, 2020, from 2021 on, the first systems are not going to be supported with the FIT. So these questions, or this question here, as you can see in the bottom left corner of the slide, refers to all end customers in Germany who had their system installed before 2010. So for whom, in whatever case, it would be relevant over the next 10 years. We asked them what they plan to do. And as you can see, there's various possibilities. Nearly 3/4 want to consume their generated energy themselves. So a large share mentioned that they will retrofit their PV system with a storage system, which obviously makes sense as PV systems are, well, currently we think at least 30 years, that they can run for 30 years. Some will try to set up a PPA with their electricity suppliers. Obviously, electricity suppliers in Germany now are also ramping up their portfolios in terms of the expiring feed-in tariff. This is going to be highly interesting to survey over the next couple of years how that's going to develop. Energy management for smart technologies is an option. And as you can see as well, 28% are planning on purchasing an electric vehicle and will use the energy to charge their car, their scooter, whatever they buy. At the bottom of the slide, you can see that stopping the system operating, dismantling the system, whatever, only makes up a tiny share of these end customers. So in general, the German PV owners want to keep their system and are currently planning on how to use them once they run out of the FIT. Of course, we also wanted to know who the end customers will turn to when it comes to information regarding what to do with their PV system. Personally, I was quite surprised to see that the grid operator is the most favorite option here. So the majority relies on either the grid operator or even the electric utilities, and as well 43% on governmental institutions. So highly interesting to see how that's going to develop, what the government is going to offer in terms of A, information, and B, maybe some kind of offerings, or, well, we'll see. Installers and manufacturers themselves, be it storage manufacturers or even PV manufacturers, are actually listed at the bottom end of this scale. So it's quite interesting to see. In general, we always think that German or any end customer in Europe relies on their installer, and if they're still in business, we would have suspected that they may rather approach them to speak about how to use the system onwards. And of course, we also wanted to know what the price expectation is. So if these customers, if they sell their PV, their generated electricity, we wanted to know what do they expect to earn through this. As you can see, there's a wide range of expectations in terms of selling the generated electricity. However, the largest share of the end customers has even no kind of expectation or estimation, or just wasn't able to answer the question. 23% were not able to give us any price indication in terms of generated electricity. Raffaele mentioned it in the beginning. This year in Brussels, November 5th to November 6th, at Digital Solar and Storage, there's also going to be an electric mobility exhibition. We're really interested in seeing that. Of course, electric mobility is a highly discussed topic in Germany. We're far behind in terms of the current targets. So the government obviously has to invest much more in pushing e-cars and e-scooters and e-bikes and all that. But of course, when speaking to PV owners and planners, this is a topic that we need to discuss. So as you can see here, we asked how the end customers feel about purchasing an electric vehicle. As you can see, merely 20% of the survey participants already own an electric vehicle. However, the majority is interested, and some of them already made the decision to buy a car or are currently checking relevant offers. However, we also have to admit that 1/3 of the sample group currently does not want to buy an electric vehicle. So this actually reflects a third of the whole sample of 1,785 end customers we spoke to, and it's quite a large share when looking at, as I mentioned, the targets that we're currently missing. We also asked what the main reasons are to purchase an electric car, of course. So nearly 80% of the respondents want to buy an electric car so they can use their generated energy to charge it. We saw this reflected with a different kind of figure a few slides ago. Again, it's worth taking notice of who the respondents are. So these are either PV system owners or planners. So obviously they're going to use their PV system in terms of, obviously they're going to connect an electric car if they buy it with their PV system. Following reasons are maybe more, I was looking for a word earlier on to describe it, maybe more ethical. So we have environmental awareness and sustainability as the second highest reason, and obviously the individual contribution to the Energiewende, the energy transition here in Germany, which is a highly emotionalized topic. And what's also interesting, a little bit further down the scale, I think it's around a quarter, already considering becoming independent from oil price fluctuations. So this is obviously a topic that's always been highly discussed in the media, and obviously this is going to be a major factor in the future if the uncertainties continue. So we spoke about complementary technologies a bit earlier, and on this slide we can see that nearly 2/3 of those who already own an electric car also have their own wall box. This is the slide on the right hand of the graph. So 65% already have a wall box as well for their electric car. We An even larger share, however, claims that private charging station would be very important when buying an electric vehicle. So the graph on the left side of this slide actually includes not only the ones who already own a PV system, but those who are an electric car, but rather those who are currently considering purchasing an electric car. And more than 77% said on a scale from 1 to 5, it's highly important. So the wall box market is also going to grow as compared to the slide we showed you a few minutes ago. And last but not least, in terms of content from the end customer monitor, we wanted to speak about clouds and communities. So as you can see here, digital applications such as clouds and communities are becoming more and more interesting to the German end customer. Nearly half of the respondents are already familiar with these kind of solutions, so 45%. And okay, we also have, and then we asked these 45%, are they using a cloud or community solution? Only a small share already has or is member of a cloud or a community. The large share, unfortunately, is currently not planning on using such a solution. But on the other hand, you also have to say that currently more than 40% are either already using a solution, have an offer on their table, or are planning to use one. This is definitely an upwards trend as compared to the last few years. So this is a growing segment and is something that we're obviously going to continue to include in our research. What is highly interesting when looking at clouds and communities is that more than a quarter actually chose the storage manufacturer due to the corresponding cloud or community offer. So this may only be interesting currently for a small group here, as we can see, 27%, but it was decisive for their purchase. And it has shown also in comparison to our earlier research that this is a growing trend. So just to give you an example, probably a customer from, I don't know, Zenex on E3DC, they only chose to use certain, or have this certain brand installed because they come with a corresponding cloud or community offer. So also from our point of view, highly interesting to see which manufacturers are going to offer these solutions in the future. And of course, on the other hand, we have to ask why people or why end customers do not want to use a cloud or community solution. As you can see here, the main reason is that they don't see the benefit. This shows, on the one hand, that providers need to invest more in information and education when it comes to their systems, and also the benefits. We can see this here in the second column here, 31%. Also shows that the benefits and offers need to be more transparent to end customers. So the providers have to pick up their game here and well, obviously come out with a better overview of their proposals. So as I mentioned, due to time constraints, we're only able to show you a certain amount of slides here, but if you have any more questions, please get in touch with us. Now I'd like to hand back to Julian for a short summary, and then we're happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Saif. What I'm going to do is summarize the most important facts that we have seen and learned today. The European market in general for energy storage is growing, for example, driven by expiring feed-in tariffs and governmental framework conditions. The second point is a large share of German end customers who already have a PV system installed are planning on additionally adding an energy storage system. The main driver when the feed-in tariffs expire is self-consumption. Only a small share will stop operating their PV systems. From the e-mobility chapter, there is charging an electric vehicle with the own PV system is the main driver for e-mobility. And so the question is, more PV systems, more electric vehicles? This is the question. And 2/3 of the owners already have their own wall box. A little bit more than a quarter of the respondents claim that the offer for a cloud community was decisive when choosing the energy storage brand. So this is the short summary of our webinar today. Thank you very much. And if you have questions, you can ask Rafaela now or on the next slide. Here are our contact details, and you can get in touch with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julian, and thank you, Saif, for this very informative and insightful presentation. Also, thank you for respecting the time allowances you were given. So in light of this, we have some minutes to address some questions that have come up from the audience. So again, you can see the instruction how to pose a question through the chat box that you can find on your right-hand side. I think we can start with a question that is actually a clarification request. The number of installation that were installed in 2019, I think, is referring to one of the first graphs that you showed about the European market. Is it the number of installation or is the total installed capacity? So if you can clarify on this point.
This is the number of installation. It's not the capacity. So it's really the number of installed storage systems, residential storage systems, without retrofit systems.
Right, thank you. Now going a bit more into content, we have one question that asks, what are the drivers and barriers for some of the other European storage markets as opposed to Germany?
Yes, so this one's for me, and thank you for this one. And it deals with the graph we described just seconds ago. And if you remember this slide, the overall picture was as followed. Germany is most dominant and will be in the near future, and other countries seem to lag a bit behind. And this is true, but all of them will develop in a positive way in the next years and will follow the development of Germany. Yeah, there are several reasons for that. Let me take the examples of the Netherlands and the United Kingdom. Both countries have one thing in common, and this is that the end customers might be a bit unsure or uncertain about what will happen in the future, and this is of course a great barrier to invest in this technology. In the Netherlands, for example, they decided to abolish the net metering concept, and if this happens, it will definitely be a big pushing factor for energy storage. But the problem right now is that there is no specific time when this will happen, so this leads to uncertainty amongst the people. And current news say that the net metering will start expiring in 2022. And from then on, from my side, I'm sure the Netherlands will become a very trendy storage market. And the other example is the United Kingdom. And due to various facts like the low electricity price, what is a barrier, and there is no feed-in tariff, UK is not a very promising market for PV in general, but it might boom in the future. And next year, the United Kingdom will introduce the Smart Export Guarantee, the SEG. This means that medium or large energy suppliers will have to purchase the generated power from renewable energy sources up to 5 megawatts. But prices will align with wholesale prices, and including a requirement to meter half hourly. So nobody knows what happens if good prices can be achieved, but this is completely unknown right now. UK will become a really smart and digital location for energy trading, including a booming storage market, because by implementing storage devices, it will be possible to sell loads at high wholesale prices and to shift the loads. Okay, now I talked a lot, and I want to sum it up, the question. So barriers are more or less the net metering, like in the Netherlands, or for example also in Belgium. Uncertainty regarding governmental decisions, low electricity prices, these are barriers, and drivers in general are increasing electricity prices, like in most of the European countries. Support schemes for storage, and expiring feed-in tariffs, like in Germany and Italy. Those are the drivers.
right? So my understanding is that one key component of uncertainty is scarce visibility on the time frame of policy decisions that are taking place in the various member states. Now, following up on that, there's a question of what are some of the reasons why German end customers do not want to install an energy storage system?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Raffaele, thank you. Yeah, there are many reasons. So, of course, we know, as I mentioned beforehand, Germany is one of, or maybe the pioneering PV market. In Germany, there are a lot of end customers and home users have a technological affinity towards new products. So, one of the reasons the PV market got started as well in Germany as it did was also that the end customers appreciated the new technology. And therefore, obviously, we also always have to have a look at what reasons maybe why people don't want to have PV installed, or in this case, energy storage. There are quite a few reasons, to be honest. The most common ones are economical reasons. So a lot of end customers, this may be right or wrong from the point of view of the manufacturer, but a lot of end customers still think that energy storage is quite expensive. If this isn't the case, if manufacturers can't agree on that, then they have to inform the end customer accordingly. But pricing is one factor, and the lack of profitability coming with high investment costs. This is what the end customers think is a great barrier to them to invest. Then there is technological maturity. So a lot of end customers think that the efficiency is not as high as it can be, or maybe in a couple of years. A lot of questions were posed in terms of service life. How long will a storage system hold if I have a PV system on the roof that may be capable of generating electricity for 30 years? How long will my storage system hold up? Then for some of them, or quite a large share, obviously the feed-in tariff is still attractive. So we spoke about expiring feed-in tariffs. The homeowners who registered for the FIT in the first 10 years of the EEG, for them, they had no reason, there was no business case to install storage. However, once the feed-in tariff expires, a large share, as we saw of them, is going to invest in storage. Then there are security concerns, so fire hazards, gas evolution, things like that are still topics we all know, or us in the industry, we know that major breakthroughs have been made in terms of this, but for the end customer, of course, this may still be a big concern. And what we also saw in our research in the current end customer monitor is that for a certain share, I think it was about 30%, the installers actually dissuaded them. So we also survey installers, as you all may know, and one of the main factors is that the installer is a key in terms of choice of technology and of brand. In this case, I think around 30% of the end customers actually said that their installer didn't or recommended against installing energy storage. The reasons behind this would obviously be grounds for our installer research, but we also know from this point of view that for a lot of installers, storage is not part of their business. Some have been so long in the market for PV, they just don't want to get involved in a new technology. And for a lot of them also, they don't see the economical benefit for their end customers. However, we can say fairly enough that the majority of German installers already carry energy storage in their portfolio and are more than happy to recommend it.
Thank you. Let me follow up to this with a clarification question from one of our attendees who is asking if you can clarify what kind of technology are you specifically talking about when speaking about energy storage? And since we're at it, let me also take on another question. If you can provide an example of cloud and community solutions. Thanks.
Okay. So in terms of the technology, we're talking about electrical energy storage, so mainly lithium-ion systems. In the beginning, sort of around 2012, 2013, when energy storage hit the German market, there was still a lot of lead-based manufacturers. But as of now, the large majority of the systems that are included in our research and are available in the German market are lithium-ion systems. There's probably going to be new technologies popping up. I think we have one saltwater storage manufacturer from Austria, Blue Sky. There was one called Aquion, but they've run out of business. So I think lithium-ion for the next few years is still going to be the dominant technology. And what was the question? An example for cloud and community service? Was that
That's
the question?
correct. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So there are a few manufacturers, such as, for instance, Sonnen. They have the Sonnen community, where people can register and can basically share their stored electricity within this community. We're talking about can't think of the term right now, but the general idea is, on the one hand, that we also have an own report on that. So whoever asked that question can, I'm happy to, if he gets in touch with me, I can send some further information. There are different kinds of services that they offer. There's one provider of a cloud and community where you don't need an electric energy storage system. You can just benefit from, you have to pay a fee, but you can benefit from electricity generated and stored from other community members. A lot of utilities have been now very active here to sort of combine the whole customer base so that everyone can benefit from it. You have frequency, excuse me? Yeah, you have different kinds of services, but again, this is topic of a more direct survey, or actually research study from us, called Clouds and Communities in Germany. We surveyed, this year we analyzed 10 providers of these systems, and yeah, it's a bit hard to explain it just in a couple of sentences, but if anyone has any questions, please get in touch and I can send you further information.
Right. I see that there are some questions popping up with regard to the end of the feed-in tariff in Germany. So one question, which partially I think you addressed already, but as a clarification, what is the time frame for the expiration of the German feed-in tariff? And is there any other policy support in place now or planned for the future?
Okay. So the time frame, basically, the EEG started in the beginning of 2020. So, the feed-in tariff schemes was set up for 20 years. So as of beginning of 2021, the first systems will run out of the feed-in tariff. However, in the beginning, in the first couple of years, due to pricing and so, only a few thousand systems were installed. The highly interesting years are going to be a little bit more in the future, roughly around 2030, 2031, because 2010, 2011, 2012, those were the real boom years in Germany, where we had several gigawatts installed, several thousand PV systems. And in regards to new policies or new schemes, there's a lot being discussed at the moment. I mean, for one, the 52 gigawatts lid is, as to my understanding, going to be abolished now. Which meant that the feed-in tariff will expire once 52 accumulated 52 gigawatts were installed in Germany. A lot of people, a lot of institutions like BSW, Bundesverband Solarwirtschaft, Solar Promotion, also EuPD Research invested a lot in speaking with policymakers to try and abolish this lid, and at the moment it looks quite good. There are subsidy schemes for storage on a federal level. So some of the federal states, they have their own subsidy schemes for energy storage. Now that the KfW Bank, Bank for Restoration, they abolished their scheme, which was for the last couple of years very successful and also gave impulses to the market. But as such, if there's anything currently planned on a national level, I'm unfortunately not aware of.
Right. So if I understood you correctly, the greatest bulk of the installations will see the end of the feed-in tariff in some 8 to 10 years, and that will be a major trend. Let's say that's when it gets really interesting, yeah, because this is also going to be a major push for the storage market. As we saw, nearly 4/5 of the PV system owners, they want to retrofit their system with storage, and this is when it gets really interesting, yeah. Absolutely. Following up on the questions on the feed-in tariff, one question is about the one of the presentations one slide that you had in the presentation, and it's from the study. It seems that the end customers don't really have a very clear idea about electricity prices. Do you think that price plays a key role for end customers, or are rather other factors that you listed strongest drivers for storage solutions?
Okay, so the slide that whoever posed the question is referring to was it dealt with, this is the slide here, if you can see it. This question was posed is as to when people have run out of the feed-in tariff with their system, what are they planning to do? A certain amount of end customers mentioned that they will try and set up a PPA with their electricity supply. So the idea is to sell the generated energy. And this question is posed to these people, and we ask them what do they expect, will they get per kilowatt. So this is not the electricity prices as such, because in Germany they're I think roughly around 30 cents per kilowatt. This is just how they're going to sell it. I think, well, or as we showed, I think only a smaller amount of end customers are going to sell the electricity and try and make a business case out of it. The large share is going to be going to self-consume their generated electricity. Julian mentioned this while he was presenting. A few years ago, we asked end customers what are the main reasons to invest in PV and storage, and the large share said return on invest. However, over the last few years, we've seen a paradigm shift, and it goes more towards self-consumption, independence from the electricity supplier, but also environmental awareness. And I think these are bigger drivers for storage than actually selling, for PV and storage, than actually selling the generated electricity.
Right. Like parallel question is, do you have any idea on what price to expect for selling electricity after the end of the feed-in tariff?
No, unfortunately not. This is not, I mean, sure, we're going to invest research in terms of this, but this was not part of this report, and at the moment I'd be out of my league given an estimation here.
Fair enough. I think I'm going to ask you one last question that came on feed-in tariff.
Raffaele, sorry.
Yes.
Whoever asked that question can get in touch with me. I can ask within my team. I'm sure we have done research in this kind of form. So if there are questions about electricity pricing or what we expect we can sell or end customers can sell the electricity for, I'm more than happy to check with my team.
Noted. So as said, please get back to Saif and Julian if you have any specific questions on this matter. So as I was saying, one last question about the feed-in tariff expiration, and then we can finalize with a few questions on e-mobility, which are also popping up. Again, what are the intentions of German business and commercial customers when their feed-in tariffs expire?
Okay, that's a good question. So obviously this report focuses more on residential customers, but we also have conducted research for business and commercial customers. So similar to residential customers, self-consumption is the main factor. However, our research has also shown that commercial customers still see PV and storage as an investment. So a lot of them are return driven. Furthermore, independence from the utility is a larger factor for commercial customers than it actually is for residential customers. And also, which I think is highly interesting, we touched it for the residential customers, but larger companies are already investing in their electric vehicle infrastructure. So for, I think, I don't have the figures right in front of me now, but I think around a quarter of the business owners said that they are using PV and storage to build up their infrastructure for their electric vehicle park.
Now let's move on to e-mobility. One question asks, at what point in time during the buying process for PV and storage do German and customers intend to purchase their electric vehicle?
Okay, it's actually in the report. It wasn't in the presentation, so I'll spoiler some of the answers if someone's interested in the report. But of course, customers who want to purchase an electric vehicle rarely do it together with the PV system. So obviously this is economical reasons. I mean, you're speaking about quite a large investment for an electric vehicle alone. So the focus in first line is with the PV and possibly also the storage system. However, generally the majority intends purchasing an electric car around within 2 years after purchasing the PV system. I think around a third actually is interested in doing it within between the first and the second year. So they don't do it directly, but there's not as much time between it. The majority wants to have an electric car within 2 years of installing the PV system.
Thanks. We have a question about, did you have the opportunity to have a look at electric vehicles providers in regards to this issue? So I think the question here is regarding brand awareness. Did you have the chance to do so?
It's part of the report. So for all topics, PV, so modules, inverters, electrical storage, and also electric mobility, we had a look at the buying process. And for the buying process, it's interesting, or it's important to know which brands are known. So I'm pretty sure Tesla was #1, but I do have the information. I don't have it right here, but we do have the information. We don't not only checked unaided brand awareness, but when speaking about purchasing, we also asked which brands were up for grabs. So, for instance, for PV, we see that end customers have around 3 different brands to choose from. We asked which ones they actually chose, to buy. So we were able to calculate the realization of purchase. So, as I mentioned, if Tesla is up for grabs with 10 customers and 5 of them purchase it, that's a 50% share, which is good. And that's just a fictive character, sorry. And also we also asked about satisfaction. So how satisfied are you with the brands you purchased? Would you like to recommend them? This is all part of the report we just presented.
Thank you. We're almost running out of time, but I think there will be time for one more or 2 maybe questions, depending on your answer to the first one. I think we can address a bit more clouds and communities. How has the interest in clouds and communities developed over the last years?
Yeah, okay. So we've been reviewing this for around 3 years now. So around 3 years ago, we first had a look at the first communities on offer. I think at that time, it was merely Sonnen, E3DC, and Zenek who offered some kind of cloud or community service. We already there had a look at how important this was for the purchasing decision in regards to these 3 brands. In the beginning, the offers were rarely accepted, but this figure has grown, as I mentioned also beforehand. So I think now we're about around a quarter of the end customers actually also say that it's decisive for their purchase. I think in the first year was roughly around 10%. It's an important factor is also that that more and more providers are popping up for clouds and community offers. So in the beginning, there was only specialized providers for digital applications, such as companies as Polarstern. They merely offer the solution. Then, and as I mentioned this before, storage manufacturers entered the market. In the beginning, it was E3DC, Sonnen, and Zenek. Now, more and more manufacturers already offer clouds and communities. And as of late, we have seen that even the larger utilities are offering these services. So, Energy, E.ON, they have EWE. They all offer cloud and community services. What I mentioned beforehand also is that in terms of digital solutions, clouds and communities are interesting to a smaller share of end customers. However, on the one hand, it's highly interesting and highly important to this group of people. And secondly, this group is also growing slowly but steady over the last couple of years. So in any terms, digital is going to be a driving factor in whatever case, not only clouds and communities, but also energy management. And maybe this is a good way to remind everyone of digital solar and storage in Brussels from November 5th to November 6th, because we're going to see a lot. I went the last 2 years. There's a lot of providers for digital solutions. There's going to be highly interesting presentations and panels. So if you don't want to miss out on this digital transition, then you all should come to Brussels.
Right, we are really at the end, so maybe one last quick question, and I expect a quick answer. What is the most attractive market among the rest of Europe group?
For PV storage, digital?
I assume it's talking about energy storage.
It's hard to say at the moment. There's a couple of them popping up. We think the Netherlands, once net metering expires or is going to be abolished, is going to have a huge push. Over the last 2-3 years, it was the by far largest residential market in Europe. I think in 2017, 85,000 systems were installed and only 1,500 storage systems. So alone for 2017, that leaves 83,000 or 83,500 systems that can benefit from energy storage.
Thank you very much. 1 minute past 4, so I think we have now reached the end of our webinar, sticking more or less to the time that we had allocated. So this was the last question. So thank you very much, Julian and Saif, for the exciting presentation. And I think we have got some very valuable insights that we have learned from this discussion. So thanks to all of you for attending the webinar, and please keep an eye on our upcoming events. So I wish you a pleasant rest of the day and have a nice day.